I spent 8 years trying to reach him, and then another 7 trying to keep him locked up because I realized that what was living behind that boy's eyes was purely and simply evil.
Hey guys, this is Tim.
Yeah, this is Brian.
And welcome to the first episode of the Civil Gore Podcast. Tonight we're going to discuss John Carpenter's classic Halloween from 1978, one of our favorite horror movies.
Yes, it's definitely one of my all-time favorites, and it definitely was an inspiration for me to getting into horror movies, so we figured that would be a good start, to start with one we're pretty familiar with and that we both love a lot, and yeah.
So, one thing we wanted to do with this first episode was talk about how the show came to be. Kind of the inspiration behind the Civil Gore name. So you want to speak to that, Brian?
Sure. Started off actually funny due to another podcast out there, coasterradio.com. So they were a theme park podcast, and after a number of years, they finally had their first listener meetup. So we went down, a bunch of us went down there, and one of the first people we got to meet was Tim and his brother Kevin, and we all hit it off really well and just started hanging out and talking and with our mutual love of coasters. And then we found out that Tim and I actually had also a mutual love of horror films. So we joked about it at the time, saying, hey, we should do a podcast on that. And now, I guess 2 years later, we're here.
Yeah, it's finally come to fruition. Yeah, Brian came down and we went to one of the haunts at my home park, Carowinds, and it kind of blew up from there. As you may tell from our accents, Brian's from up north, I'm from down south, and so that was the inspiration behind the Civil Gore, Civil War pun title for this podcast, and hopefully we'll be discussing these movies civilly.
Yes, and I think we owe that a nod to Kevin on that one, right? For the name I think he came up with that, right?
Yeah, my brother came up with that genius title. So let's go into how we became fans of horror films, because nobody knows who we are yet. Nobody knows our background in horror. So let's kind of go in a little bit of what was your first horror experience and what got you into this hobby.
I really have to say it's probably seeing Halloween for the first time. I was a kid, and I remember it was on, up in New York, we have Channel 11, which is, I guess, WPIX, but that really means nothing unless you're from New York. But anyway, it was just a local station, and they had their movie nights. And I was young enough, and I was at home with a babysitter, funny enough, and she had said I had seen the commercials for it, and it looked exciting. So she had seen it already. So she said, "Oh, we got to watch this horror movie." So I watched it and pretty much just loved it, even though it was the edited version, which I was thinking is kind of funny because I've seen it so many times. I don't remember seeing it as an edited version. I remember a lot of scenes that I know would not have been on television from that movie. So which we'll get into later, of course. But so I watched that, and I think then the next one I may have seen, I saw Shining at one point soon after that, and Friday the 13th. That I did see on cable. I remember I had cable pretty early on in my room. So, and I had gotten to see that one, and then I was pretty much hooked after that, even though they scared me a little as a kid, but I still loved them. So, how about you, Tim?
Yeah, I had a similar babysitter experience. I don't know how old I was, but let's see, Shining came out in what, 80? So I had to have been at least 6. So I remember getting out of bed. I crept in there. I was supposed to be in bed. My babysitter was watching television, and The Shining was on, and I kind of hung out behind the couch and watched over her shoulder. And it was a scene where Danny comes wheeling around and sees the twins in the hallway, and of course that freaked me out. Scared me half to death. I ran screaming back into my room, and to this day, The Shining has left a mental scar on me. Like, it's still my pick for the scariest horror movie of all time, and it's the one I still feel uncomfortable watching by myself.
Yeah, I don't blame you. That creeped me out as well.
but I really got into. I was always in as a kid. I was always into ghost stories and things like that. I remember even in elementary school, I would check out every book on monsters or ghosts or whatever that they had, and part of me wonders if there's some genetic component to that, because my dad's really into horror, but he wasn't really around me. I kind of found that out later in life, and I've noticed my son is kind of the same way. He kind of gravitates towards that kind of stuff.
Ah, nice.
So who knows? But anyway, when VHS rentals first started appearing on the scene in the 80s, I remember my mom would take us to this little local video store called Chip's Video, and she'd let us rent whatever we wanted to, me and my brother. And God bless my mom, she didn't care what we rented. I mean, she really had no restrictions. I don't know that she even knew what she was letting us rent.
It's like, as long as they're quiet, we'll let them rent.
Yeah, maybe it was a babysitter, but she let us rent. I remember the first one I rented was Friday the 13th, and scared the crap out of me. And I was hooked ever since, and we went through the whole series up until whatever it was at that time. And then we went through Nightmare on Elm Street, and then we went through Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Hellraiser, and at some point I got into the Halloween series, and we can discuss that a little later when we talk about our first time seeing this movie. But it became my absolute favorite franchise of all of them. And so I've kind of been a horror fan ever since. I took a little break from it right out of college, just starting a family and that kind of thing. I just kind of drifted away from it for a little while. But as the kids have gotten a little older, I'm back into it full time again.
Right, and speaking of the kids, you'll have to maybe on a later episode you'll have to tell that's the famous story where your own daughter kind of scared you on the steps and.
Yeah, kids are scary, not just in horror movies. They're scary in real life as well.
Yeah, we'll tease you there. So there, at least we'll guarantee you. Now you have to come back for the second episode.
There you go.
Or a future episode. We'll keep teasing it until you guys, till we build our audience. But and actually, I forgot one other one that kind of really freaked me out as a kid, but I guess kept the excitement of horror for me was when they first showed Salem's Lot on TV.
Yes.
And that scene where the kid, I guess, he floats up to the window and knocks on the window and floats in. That scared me to no end. I didn't sleep probably for about, I don't know, a couple weeks after that properly because I was just so freaked out. And I had no window like that in my room at all. But I was still convinced that could happen, like at a car window or whatever. But, and the funny thing is, actually, not too long after that, I remember I was with my mom. We stayed at one of her friend's house at one point, and they did have a window like that in the room I was staying in. So basically I did not get the best night's sleep that night. So
yeah, I think that scene scared a lot of people our age back in the day.
And it was such a simple scene, yet so like terrifying.
And that was originally a TV movie, right?
Yeah, and I actually, I think I finally got that, right? That was the one we just ordered, I think, both of us.
Right,
we ordered the TV version, which was I think that was like almost like 3.5 hours long, but I remember they stretched it over 2 nights when I saw it first. I don't know how they showed it originally where you were, but they had, I remember they had it, and then I think a week later they showed part 2, so I had a whole week to be like terrified up until the second part, so.
Well,
it was exciting.
Not to get too far off topic, but when we're talking about TV movies, one of the biggest jump scares I've ever had in my life was a TV movie called The Woman in Black. It wasn't not the movie that came out with the Harry Potter dude, but it was the actual original British TV movie called The Woman in Black. It had literally one of the biggest jump scares I've ever had in my life. I actually flipped over the back of a couch.
Oh my god!
So don't underestimate TV horror movies, kids, because they can scar you.
Oh yeah, because it's as long as it's not gory, they'll show. Well, nowadays, God knows what they'll show, but yeah.
Yeah.
But that was I gotta have to check that out. I guess maybe we'll get Matt on the show one time to get a British perspective of it.
Yeah, check that one out. It's great. In fact, I've kind of been scared to watch the newer version, like the Americanized version, because I'm like, I hope they don't have that same jump scare in there because I don't want to see it again.
I watched it. It wasn't really memorable to me at all, which is, I don't know if that's a really singing endorsement for it, but I feel like I'll give it another chance because I know I think I was watching it at work one day, so over the course of 2 days, which is not really a good idea to do for a horror movie. You know, it kind of ruins the pacing of it. But so right. I'd give it a chance again, especially now. We'll have to review it. Maybe that'll be one of our soon to be titles we'll review. So
yeah, absolutely. Well, let's talk a little bit about what we anticipate coming out of the show, because this show we kind of had a vision for it that might not be the same as some other horror podcasts that are out there. So and I think we both kind of wanted to model this a little bit after Coaster Radio in terms of this is a very casual horror fan podcast. We're not here to slam you with trivia. We don't know all the stats of every movie that's ever come out. You know, a lot of you guys have probably seen way more horror movies than I have, but we just want a place where, you know, you could grab a beer and sit down every week and, you know, listen to a couple of friends talk about a movie.
Yeah, and actually the beer will come into play as one of our features of the show we want to do. We thought it'd be kind of fun to actually, because as one more thing we both have in common is we're both beer aficionados, so we figured it'd be great to kind of give a beer pairing to each horror movie we watch. So if you guys decide after the show you want to watch the movie we talked about again, you can get the beer to go with it, I guess.
Yeah. Usually when I'm watching one of these, I've got a beer in my hand. It's not necessarily the right pairing, but...
Yeah, like tonight, just for the podcast, I one that has nothing to do with anything we're talking about. It's just a 6.5 beans, which is one of those coffee porter. More so because I wanted a nice beer, but I'm also a little tired at the end of the weekend, so I wanted something to keep me a little awake, so...
Yeah, I'm finishing up the winter ales because it's been so freaking hot here in North Carolina. It's been in the 70s almost all winter, so I'm finishing up a Bell's Winter White Ale tonight. So.
Ah, nice. Yeah, Bell's is one of our favorites. So, I guess also to go along with Tim's point too about that, it's like, you know, we are definitely not horror historians. Like some of the other podcasts I know will be, this is based off of the 1912 horror film, you know, whatever, The Ghost in the Casket or something. Yeah, we're not going to be...
I want to see that one.
Is that a movie? I don't know.
I don't know.
If not, it's a good one. We better copyright that. But yes, so and we'll probably get some facts wrong. But like Tim said, it's all about just two friends having fun talking about horror movies, and you guys can listen and enjoy it along with us, and just it'll all be, you know, I guess as much fun as you could have talking about horror movies, right?
Right, and if you have enough beers, you won't care that we make all these mistakes.
Exactly. In fact, we'll probably make the mistakes, not even realizing we made mistakes if we have enough beers.
All right, so we're going to have a segment every week that we're going to, in honor of Coaster Radio, they have a segment called The First Drop, which is their first kind of news segment, things going on that week. And we're going to call ours The First Chop.
So, once again, as the Lift Hill Media lawyers could be already probably doing some kind of paperwork, as we've already ripped off their show a number of times tonight. But, no, we're good friends with Mike and EB. They're cool with stuff like that. Yeah, it's definitely more of an homage, because they definitely inspired us to do... I mean, I'm sure, well, this podcast would not be existing without those guys. So... And, so I guess for our first chop today, it's kind of like, it's very timely because one of our favorite franchises basically was having, which was Friday the 13th, was going to have a new installment coming out this October, and it was unceremoniously canceled for some reason. I've done some research. I have not found out why. I mean, I've heard rumors that because The Ring did poorly, Rings did poorly. That was why. I don't know what that has to do with the others, because it's complete. I mean, yes, they're both horror movies, but Friday the 13th has a lot of loyal followers. I don't think that should have affected it, but it's all money in that. But to quote Tim at one point, as one door closes, the other opens. And how timely is this, that Halloween now, and John Carpenter is actually behind the project, is going to have its next installment on October 19th, 2018. So yeah, bad news on one front, good news on the other. Let's go back to the Friday the 13th cancellation. This is so frustrating because this is a franchise that should be so easy to make a reboot. And I'm one of the few. I actually
sort of halfway liked the Friday the 13th remake that they did a few years back.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I thought it was great. I mean, it was just a modernized version of what was already there. It's not a complicated formula.
Yeah, I mean, I've read, and I was telling Brian this at one point. I've read a lot of the Friday the 13th comics, and there's some decent stories in there that you could easily adapt to a movie. I mean, it doesn't take rocket scientists to figure out this formula, and I think there's this feeling that they have to do something completely different, or they have to add more to the origin, or they have to make it more complicated. I don't think. I mean, as me as a horror fan, I don't care. I just want to see Jason killing people.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's what I heard. Well, originally, I guess a couple of years ago, they were talking about the found footage version of it, which would have been interesting, but I'm not sure how that would have worked. I mean, what is he on, like, security cameras? It's
I mean, yeah. that might have worked a few years ago, but I think the found footage thing has become kind of a self-parody at this point, so I think it would be a mistake to do a found footage this day and age. We saw how the Halloween version of that turned out.
Yeah, and it kind of made fun of itself throughout it, and then... I mean, although I did kind of like the new Blair Witch that way, but then again, it was kind of just taking from the original at some point, and so it was more of I think I liked it more of a nostalgic point of view than actually as a film, but yeah. So I mean, that's what I had heard about the Friday the 13th, that they were going to really go into Jason's origin, and which I mean could be interesting, but I don't think, like you said, I don't think it needs to be told in the film necessarily. There's plenty of, I mean, what. Follow the Star Wars thing. You don't tell every story on film. There's shows, there's novels, there's comics. I mean, there's so many ways they could do it. So it's like, I don't know. I mean, they just need Jason back on the screen, like slicing people up. I mean, that's the formula. That's the simple thing. That's what everyone fell in love with. They didn't fall in with like this untapped filmmaking, thing that all of a sudden, this is the most amazing thing ever. No, it's like after the first couple, it's like, okay, the formula.
Yeah, well, I mean, they could do something, again, going back to the Star Wars reference, how did they reboot everything with The Force Awakens? They made it similar to the old ones, okay. Some people had a problem with that. I didn't really have a problem with it. But, they put in stuff that the fans are going to really go nuts over, and you could still do that with Friday the 13th. You can make reference to other films in the series, put in little Easter eggs for the major hardcore fans, and still make it an entertaining movie. So, whether it was budget or whatever, it's a disappointment, but at least we have the game coming out soon.
Yeah, and that we already discussed that. As soon as that game comes out, we're going to definitely have a special episode of maybe just us playing it for a while and and reacting, because that thing looks amazing. That's like the game I've always dreamed of, back from like the old Nintendo NES days, with that pitiful excuse for a Friday the 13th game, yet somehow I could not stop playing. So,
and who knows, if the game's a success, maybe the movie studios take another look at it.
Yeah, or maybe they'll just go the Ghostbusters route and just make it a all female driven comedy.
Female Jason.
Yeah, female Jason.
Jenna.
Justine. Justine Voorhees. There we go. That'll be.
Okay, so to the Halloween reboot. Now, I was beyond excited for this because, like I said, that's my favorite franchise of all the horror franchises. That's my favorite. Even with the bad movies in there, I don't care. I love Michael Myers. He's my favorite. And so when I heard it was getting rebooted, I didn't even look at who was writing or directing this thing. All I saw was John Carpenter endorses this reboot, and I was sold.
Yeah, no. And did you notice now, I don't know if you're going to get to but there's not a reboot, really.
Yeah, you're right. It's not a reboot. It's an actual, I read that later, that it's an actual continuation from Halloween 1 and 2.
Which, I got to tell you, that part of it, when I saw that, I was like, you know what? That's going to be interesting. That's going to be cool. I don't think I mean, of course, I'd love to get Jamie Lee Curtis back for this. I don't know if that's even possible. But you never know.
Yeah. The elephant in the room is that this thing is being written by Danny McBride, who we all know is and I love Danny McBride. He's hilarious. I loved Eastbound and Down. All the movies he's in, I think he's freaking hysterical. But when I mean, like everybody else, I was scratching my head when I first saw this. So what'd you think about that, Brian?
Yeah, I said the same thing, and it's with David Gordon Green too, which they basically the writer of Pineapple Express. So it's like you got the Pineapple Express team doing Halloween movie. But if you know what, the way I look at it is like, if they love the movie, they obviously love this franchise. And I obviously don't think they're going to make it a slapstick or anything, not with John Carpenter behind it. It's going to have some humor, I'm sure, but all good horror movies have some moments of humor. So it's like, I'm so curious. It actually gets me excited because they obviously have a passion for it, and it's a team that works together well. So I'm actually really excited to see what they come up with,
Yeah, and like I saw somebody mention on a forum or a Facebook post or something, it was like, just because you're a comedian doesn't mean you're not a horror fan.
No, not at all. Look at Adam Green. I mean, he's one of the best one of my favorite horror directors out there right now, and he did that show Holliston, and that's basically a horror sitcom, and so you can cross over both ways back, so it's like...
Right, so yeah, I'm very, very excited to see where they're going with it, and we all know, we've heard the stories that John Carpenter is famously, I guess, prickly, so I would not think he would give his blessing to just anything off the street. I mean, he must be really impressed with this. Yeah, I'm like, it's like, that's something I'm going to probably try and monitor as much as I can to see, like, every little tidbit about that. I mean, which is good, too, because it'll distract me from trying to hunt the net for Star Wars spoilers. So I'll start looking for these now for a while, get myself a little distracted. But yeah, I mean, I'm curious to see how soon after, Halloween 2, because because obviously we know, I mean, seeing the whole franchise, like we said, but we loved the whole franchise, but it went cuckoo. I mean, it went off the rail. I mean, there's some people, like, I know that will just go from after 2, they'll jump to H2O, and go to that storyline, and right,
and then then they'll mix, because I think you have to, right? I don't there's almost like 2 ways to watch the whole thing, because
exactly,
so it's with the different the twist to it, and that whole which we'll get to, I'm sure, on a later episode when we get through the rest of when we get to Halloween 6, with the producer's cut of that, which we both have that box set, and so we could probably review both those in the same episode, which would be kind of fun and interesting. So, and that whole thing where Jason became supernatural. Jason, sorry. Yeah, see, that's why this. They need a new Friday the 13th. I'm obviously on that. So Michael was supernatural, and which we'll get to actually in a sequence later when we're talking about the film on the whole thing where he learns to drive. But we'll get to that later. So because that actually is explained, believe it or not, in a line in Halloween 6, which I thought was hilarious that it took that long to explain such a weird sequence in the first one. But
yeah, I just went through that box set, finally finished it up, and I'm talking about every movie, every commentary, every extra. So I was watching most of these films. I was watching at least twice, sometimes three or four times.
Oh wow!
And back to back, I was like plowing through them. I mean, I would watch the film, then watch the commentary, then watch the other commentary, and it was really interesting to like just immerse yourself so much in these movies, even the bad ones, and become so familiar with every little plot twist and every little thing that they put in there is really strange how different and bizarre the directions this thing took.
Yeah, and I got to do that one time. I've done I've done a marathon. I've gone through them all, but never and I have that ridiculously expensive when I paid for a box set with all those features that I've hardly touched on. But yeah, I need to do that one time too. I just need to go through and sit there and watch everything in a row, all the commentary, all the special features, plus those I guess the documentaries that they have along with it.
Well, it actually changed my mind on Halloween 3 doing that, because I had not seen Halloween 3 since I was a little kid, probably since it first came out on VHS. Maybe not a little kid, but in my teens, and I'm sure I had seen it on TV at some point, because I recognized the song and everything.
Oh God, the song,
yeah. and I remember I was like, this. I know this movie's really weird, but I've not seen this literally in probably 20 years, 25 years, and I watched it when I got the box set, and I was like, God, this movie sucks. I cannot believe I have to watch this thing again to see the commentary. I think it had 2 commentaries. And I'm like, Jesus, I'm about to watch this thing 3 times. And I'm like, I don't know if I can do it. So I was like, you know what? I bought the set. I paid this much money. I'm going to watch every commentary. So after I watched the second commentary, I was like, you know what? This movie's kind of not that bad. You know, I kind of like, you know, I get what they were doing with some of this. And then by the time I watched the second commentary, I kind of loved the movie. So it totally flipped my whole opinion around.
Yeah, sorry. You know, that was funny because I grew an appreciation of that movie too. I didn't like it the first time because I have a thing with anything with eyeballs, and I didn't like the scene where the guy like pushes the guy's eyes in when I was like younger. So I pretty much banned myself from watching it after that, and for a long time. And then I guess it came back, and I just at that point I was older, and I was like, okay, that's just silly to be not watch something like that. So I watched it again, and I was like, you know what, it's kind of got something that keeps me, you know, engaged, like a little bit of like a little tongue-in-cheek humor to it, I guess. But yeah, no, and it totally, it grew on me. So it's like I do enjoy it, even though it has nothing to do with the rest of the series. But I think I don't know if it was in one of the documentaries or I read it somewhere, but I kind of remember that's the way it was supposed to be. It was supposed to originally just be, you know, the Halloween series was supposed to be all standalones, right? I mean, isn't it something like that?
Yeah, what they were going to do is they were going to make, they were going to put one out every Halloween, and it was going to be a different story, which is a cool idea. I mean, I think that's a really cool idea, but it just bombed so bad because people wanted Michael Myers. You know, but from their standpoint, they had killed him off in Halloween 2. He was done. He's dead. He's never coming back. And so this was their first attempt to make this franchise almost an anthology of sorts, and it didn't work out.
Yeah, and you know, as we know, money talks in horror films. So obviously, you know, you're gonna love Michael Myers, and he's nowhere to be found in the movie. People that are like, "Hey, let's go," you know. And back then, remember, there was no internet, there was no preparation for that. Really, yeah. Everyone just assumed Michael Myers was going to show up somewhere.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, so.
So every week we're going to give you the rundown of the week's releases, both theatrical and on Blu-ray. And so do you want to go kick those off, Brian?
Sure. And I have to apologize for all the people out there. I don't know any of these movies that I'm going to list here, but we're going to stick with the format. So hopefully, as you know, as the episodes go on, I'll probably know more of these movies coming out. But I guess the ones that are listed here are City of Dead Men, Stakeland 2, which hopefully has the same characters of Stakeland 1, so we're not in a Halloween 3 incident. Blood Brothers, The Burning More Deaths, We Are the Flesh, which actually I read a little synopsis. I guess that's a one of those, it's a Mexican horror movie that sounded really interesting, actually. So that one I may actually try and track down and watch that one.
Yeah, I've heard some good hype on that one.
Yeah, because I think I heard about that. It was the one it seemed familiar when I read the title. I'm like, okay, that one I may know. And then Creature Lake, Death Rot, Easter Bunny Bloodbath, which with that title alone, that's going to be a watch. I have to watch that. It just sounds too good not to watch that one. Freshwater and The Horde. So, yeah. So,
there you go.
That's a rundown. So check all those out. You never know. Tim and I could discover one of these as being like so epic that we have to jump it, and it'll be one of our ones we talk about. And actually, touching on that, there really is no set schedule for the movies we're going to be reviewing. Like I said, we picked Halloween because it's so iconic for both of us, but the next one we could jump to one that's maybe came out like 2 weeks ago. Like I know we both liked It Follows. That could be there. We're not sure yet what our schedule is yet, but we'll try and do a good variety of it. And I still have to watch the movie Tim had recommended, which now, Dead of Night, right? That's the one. I still have it on my DVR.
And that's a real old one, though. It goes back to the 40s. So
yeah, so I gotta watch that. I have it saved on the DVR. My wife keeps saying, what is that movie on there? As we go look in there, and I try and explain it. But so I'll have to watch that one. As Tim told me, it's one of, and we're both fans of anthology films, by the way. And he said that's basically one of the, I guess it is the first horror anthology, right?
Yeah, I can't say if it is the first, but it's widely known as one of the first, and really the granddaddy of all horror anthologies. So yeah, that's a must see. Yeah. And unfortunately, there's not a good. I haven't been able to track down a good Blu-ray or DVD of it. I've seen one out on Amazon, but it was too much money for what I wanted to spend.
Yeah, no, I mean and the funny thing is about that. Tim and I have a new justification for ourselves when we order way too many horror movies off of Amazon or Best Buy. We just say it's for the podcast.
Yeah, exactly. But going back to the this week was barren on theatrical releases because Rings, I believe, came out last week.
Yeah.
But I'm hoping that as we get into this podcast a little more regular, when we do have horror movies coming out that week, one or both of us will get to hit the theater and see those, so we can at least, even if we don't do a deep review on it, at least we can give you our initial impressions of it. I've actually got a theater that's opening literally 5 minutes from my house in about a month. And I cannot wait because I'll be able to just jump over there right after work if I have to catch some of these new horror movies.
Yeah, and I have that AMC Stubs membership that gets me all these points, and because I usually buy my whole group of friends that would go see the Star Wars movies with, I probably have, I think, about like 10 free tickets on there. I need to start using those, so I'll use that for our podcast horror movies. Yeah, so hopefully there'll be stuff coming out soon. I know there's some decent stuff coming out towards the end of the year, so hopefully we'll start seeing the newer releases. So I guess now we're gonna just go into our we haven't thought of, we've had some rumored names for this segment, but it's basically the meat of the podcast is the movie that we're gonna review that we watched, which was obviously Halloween, the original. Because now it's funny because, I mean, basically, if we would have done this podcast maybe like 10 years ago, we could just say Halloween. But obviously, Rob Zombie did his versions, which right. We can get into another time. But that's that's another thing. So yeah, this is the original, the 1978 version, written by Deborah Hill and John Carpenter, and directed by John Carpenter. And of course, it stars Jamie Lee Curtis, Nancy Kyes, if I'm pronouncing that right. But however, here's a little bit of trivia, but thanks to IMDb, she was gone as Nancy Loomis in that, which is kind of funny based on the movie. PJ Soles, Charles Cyphers, and of course the legendary Donald Pleasance.
Yep, so we'll go through the synopsis for all two of you who haven't seen this movie yet out there. On a Halloween night in 1963 in Haddonfield, Illinois, a 6-year-old Michael Myers savagely murders his older sister. After being confined to a mental institution for 17 years and under the care of Dr. Sam Loomis, Michael escapes the night before Halloween and has only one destination in mind, Haddonfield. Dr. Loomis, who knows the pure evil that Michael is, heads after him, trying to convince the town sheriff in a desperate hope to stop him. Unfortunately, for the town of Haddonfield, and specifically Laurie Strode and her two best friends, all of Dr. Loomis's fears are realized as Michael begins to terrorize his hometown, and no one is safe.
Yes, that was my attempt at writing an exciting synopsis, so hopefully it was okay. Tim read it very well, though, by the way. Made it sound actually really good. So,
well, let's go right into our beer pairing.
Yes, we'll do that. And it's funny, and I swear to God that we did not discuss this. We were just going to both come up with the ideas, but since, as Tim said before, great minds think alike, we actually came up with the same beer. Which was, we came up with Southern Tier's Pumpkin. And my reason was, obviously, because, if you see the movie, not just the Halloween and pumpkins, but there's a lot of pumpkins in this movie, which actually I'll get to as I put that in my movie notes, that you'll see that. But, and also, since it's Pumpkin, and as we know, John Carpenter is one of the kings of horror, so there's a little play over there, but...
Yeah, and this is one of my... I've had a lot of pumpkin beers. I have them every October. I get 10 or 12 new ones to try. And this is still one of my favorites, and it's not that hard to find. It's pretty readily available, which is another reason I was going to use it for the pairing.
Yeah, that's good point.
I don't know. I don't know that it's the best out there in terms of beer advocate or whatever, but I love this one. It's my favorite.
Yeah, no, that's actually my favorite too. And I love you should know Tim and I are both pumpkin whores, I'll say.
Yeah, exactly.
And we blame each other for it too, because we keep sending things through Tab and say, "Hey, look, do you see this thing?" And it's like pumpkin. I don't know, pumpkin cornflakes or pumpkin this, and then I blame Tim because I had to buy it, and he blames me because he had to buy it. But
I actually convinced my wife last year that they had pumpkin spice Clorox.
Did they? Oh.
She believed me for all of about 5 minutes.
That's not nice. Yeah, and actually a funny story, totally unrelated but related to pumpkin. We do have a mutual friend, Matt, who comes from Yorkshire, England, and he was visiting us, and I geeked out because we were at Great Adventure and I saw pumpkin spice Dippin' Dots. And so I said, oh my God, look, there's pumpkin spice Dippin' Dots, which he replied in only the way Matt can. He's like, that is the most American thing I've ever heard. So, yeah. So, so it's not, it's, yeah, it was, Tim and I are definitely big pumpkin fans, and I've tried them all. And in fact, there is a great pumpkin one by Two Roads, but we're going to save that for Rosemary's Baby because it's called Rhodesmary's Baby. So, so that's a shoo-in right there for beer pairing for that one. But yeah, so it's funny that Tim and I both came up with that one. I mean, it's pretty obvious we were going to come up with some kind of a pumpkin beer. But yeah, pumpkin is definitely one of my favorites. It's just got a perfect mix of actually still tasting like beer, but having a good pumpkin flavor to it.
Yeah, and a lot of pumpkin beers taste like an artificial, like chemical pumpkin.
Yeah,
I don't know how to explain it. It's got a weird taste.
Or they just throw nutmeg into it and say it's pumpkin.
Yeah, it's pumpkin spice and with sans pumpkin. But this one actually tastes like you just dipped a slice of pumpkin pie right there in the bottle. It's really good.
Yeah. So if you go, it might be hard to find a little now, but yeah, around the holiday next year, definitely go, or this year, I guess I should say, make sure you grab it and then watch this movie again and then re-listen to this podcast.
And if you like them a little darker, they have the Warlock, which is kind of the stout version of this.
Oh yes, that's right. That's really good. Yeah. We might just branch this off to an old beer podcast if you haven't noticed at some point. We'll get to that later. Let's see if this one works out first.
Yeah. All right. So back to the movie. Now, like I alluded to at the beginning of the show, I don't actually remember the first time I saw this movie. I remember vaguely seeing Halloween 2, Halloween 3. I definitely remember seeing 4, 5 because I remember renting those. I don't know that I may have seen this movie rather late. I may have watched it in terms of watching it and paying attention after I had seen a lot of the sequels.
Oh, so that must have been interesting going back and like seeing that. And that's actually, yeah, I don't know if that there was one, I can't remember which horror series it was, but there was one horror series where I come into it in the middle like that and rewatched it almost like it was like my own Star Wars prequel version of it. I went backwards, but yeah, well, it was interesting to see it that way.
I used to have a real hang up about watching old movies, and by old I meant anything not in the decade I was currently watching them in. So there's a very good chance I saw this was made in '78 and just completely dismissed it because I would have been watching these in the 80s, and I really had I didn't watch the original Psycho forever because it was black and white. And it's kind of funny thinking about that today because I'm such an old movie buff. I love old movies. I watched all of the AFI Top 100. I watch TCM all the time, but when I was younger, I couldn't watch it. If it was older than 10 years, no dice. I would not rent it.
Ah, see, so you look at what you could have been missing, though.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. It's a shame I didn't jump on that bandwagon earlier, but at least I'm making up for lost time.
Yeah, and it's funny because I was talking to Tim about this right before we were getting ready to record and it's like I remember seeing it, like I said, on like the TV version of this movie, but at the same time, I remember way too many other scenes from that I know would not be on TV, like the infamous boob scene, where PJ Souls, one of those iconic like nude scenes, in movies, and I'm like, okay, I remember that, so I know that wasn't on regular TV. So it's like I think I had just seen it so many times after that, and I probably saw it on cable afterwards, and so yeah, so it's like. I probably don't remember. I just remember loving it the first time I saw it because it was so, so iconic. And like I said, my babysitter said, "Oh, I saw this. You got to see this. This is great," kind of a thing. And so, being a young kid, it was I guess it was probably a Friday night because that's when my mom used to go out and with her friends. So it was great to kind of see my first that's the first horror movie I remember actually consciously sitting there and sitting down to watch it. And I remember seeing it promoted on TV, and I was like, "Oh wow, this is cool! This is cool!" So yeah. So I loved it though, seeing it the first time. But
people don't realize that, or some people don't realize that, especially if they're very familiar with horror movies that came later, and then go back and watch this, and they think there's not much to it. but a lot of the stuff they were doing here was copied over and over and over. I mean, you can look at this and you can see Friday the 13th all over it.
Oh yeah, and that's funny. I put that in my show notes. Like, I mean, jumping ahead into the parts of the movie, but you know, the sequence where Laurie starts discovering her friend's murdered in the house. I'm like, how many times have you seen that in Friday the 13th? Where you know, whoever the surviving girl is, like, starts finding everybody all strategically placed. You know,
yeah, you see that in a lot of the, and when I mentioned about the AFI Top 100. Those are horror movies, of course, but you see these movies and you go, well, yeah, that was all right, but I don't really see what the big deal is until you start studying and you realize that's the first time that shot was ever used, or you know, that was the first time that directing decision was ever made, and then you realize the importance of that historically, and in a lot of ways, this film, a lot of other films use this film as a springboard for what they did. That you may not realize when you go back and watch it, you know, years later.
Yeah, I mean, even the opening scene. I mean, even though it's funny, I read a piece of trivia that I had always assumed that it was a complete from beginning until obviously they cut to the young Michael's face. That it was that POV shot was, you know, it's like, you know, it's continuous, but there actually are 3 cuts in that sequence, which I just learned about 10 minutes before we started recording. But still, it's like, if you look at that shot, I mean, that's like, you know, that's interesting. You basically start that movie with that POV going through, and you know, you know, you're not sure quite who that is. You know, you just assume, you know, she says, "Oh, Michael's around here somewhere," but you know, you're coming into that movie, you don't know what you're watching yet.
Yeah, one of the funny things, this was pointed out in one of the commentaries, so I actually went back and timed it myself. But from the time Michael's sister and her boyfriend go upstairs till the time he actually comes in or till the time the guy runs back down the stairs and out of the house, is like just over a minute, which means that guy's a real stud. I mean,
obviously, yeah.
The guy finished fast, but when I looked back on it this time, I was like, you know, I'm gonna give him the benefit of the doubt. I think he just went to go grab some protection.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah, because she didn't look. I mean, she didn't look too satisfied, and she's just brushing her hair, you know. Afterwards, you know. So who knows what happened, you know? But
anyway, I wonder if he had still been up there if Michael would have just gone after both of them.
Yeah, see, it's funny. You know, you watch this now, and you know, you could really, like, especially if you've seen it as many times as we have now. It's like, you just notice so many things every time, and you know, you question it, and you know, sometimes it's fun to rip apart a horror movie just as much as you love it, to find.
Well, just like the shot when Michael's standing outside with the knife, you know, 6-year-old Michael, and the mom and dad just happen to pull up at that exact moment that he runs out of the house, and then there's this big zoom shot up into the sky, which is a really cool shot. Don't get me wrong, but they stand there like just looking at Michael, and they just stand there looking at him. And he's just standing there holding the knife for like an uncomfortably long time.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, I don't have kids yet, but you do. I mean, it really is that parents gonna be that calm standing there seeing a kid in his clown costume with a bloody knife? I mean,
they're just standing there watching him. Like, first I think he's grabbing that knife out of that boy's hand.
And actually, something you just gave me a thought of too, with the guy being like that. It's like, what happens if, you know, if that guy did last longer, they would have got busted, basically, because the parents would have come home and he would have still been there.
Yeah, exactly.
So maybe it was good. He was quick.
This is the stuff you think about after you watch this movie 30 times.
Yeah, you got to start giving yourself some new things to look for, because you can only see it so many times and not find new things in there. But you know, in terms of a horror movie, like, if you think about the movie, really, it's like, it's so simplistic in a lot of stuff they do. It's like, there's not a lot of true gore in it. I mean, at all. Yeah,
no, there's not a high body count, period.
It's really not. Really. Yeah, I mean, I think 2 dogs get killed, and you know, in there if you add that. But if you think about it, like, a lot of the scares, like when I was a kid, the things that used to freak me out are, and it still does when I see it anywhere, when someone is just standing still, not moving, and they must have used that so many times where like Laurie's looking at the window and he's standing there, he's standing outside at the school, and it's just this guy standing there, you know, with a mask on, and he's not moving, and it creeps you out.
And it's in the daylight too. I mean, the vast majority of this movie takes place during the day,
right?
Which I found astounding when I was watching it again last night. I was like, you know what? I just realized that most of this movie takes place during the day. which is pretty cool. I mean, you don't see that a lot.
No, and the fact that like it's you know throughout the whole thing, like you really don't, it's just a regular town, but it seems like they're always kind of like the sense of isolation. Like she's always walking around, and every so often she'll see like maybe some kids coming out trick or treating, but it's still just like this town that's so quiet and really and just like she'll start seeing this. So at some point, if you think about it, I was thinking this actually when I was watching it this time. I'm like, even though it's like she's not imagining it, it's almost as if she is the way they kind of shoot it, because he's like disappearing and he's there and he's not there, and you really don't know any connection. I mean, obviously you find out later in the film the connection she has to Michael Myers, but so you really, it's kind of like really like a surreal shooting of this movie when you watch it, because it's just like you said, it's like in the day you just see like this guy standing there, he's driving around. I mean, as you go later, like imagine Jason Voorhees like driving around.
Well, I was talking to my brother today. I was like, Michael Myers has to be my favorite horror villain because he drives a station wagon.
Right, and
he's the only one that drives a station wagon, and that's what we were talking about. I was like, do you think he had to fill up for gas?
He had to have, right?
And then I was like, did they have pay at the pump at that time? Because he could have gone in.
I know. And think about it. As smart as he was, I guess, at some level, to figure out, to break out at that moment, to drive, like he knew he was getting transferred, I guess, and he knew to break out at that moment, get in the car, drive the thing. He stops, obviously you see later as Loomis finds the dead body, he found some trucker and, takes his work outfit. Wouldn't you think it'd be smart if he took that truck too? So it's not so obvious that you see whatever the name of the sanitarium he was in right on the door.
Yeah, I don't know. I just thought it was great that he drives around a station wagon with his mask on. That's just awesome.
I think now that you said that, that'd be kind of funny to just see him like pull up. And it's like they said it's like a far distance, so the guy had to be hungry. So imagine him like going through a drive-through in that thing too.
Through McDonald's.
Yeah, and he doesn't talk, so how do you order anything? It's like,
I don't know, but going back to when you're talking about like the surreal, did she imagine it? Did she not? One of the things I caught watching it this time around, and by the way, I'm always going to rewatch these movies. I don't care if I've seen them 100 times.
Oh yeah,
if we're doing it for the podcast, I'm going to rewatch it because you always do pick up on stuff like this. But there's a scene where she's upstairs and she looks down, she sees him in the laundry, like hanging out with her sheets and stuff.
Yeah.
which again I thought was kind of funny.
Yeah,
like,
that so dates that movie too. Like, who hangs sheets out now? Do you ever see that anywhere?
Yeah, but she's looking down at him. They show the shot of Michael in the sheets. Then they cut back to her. She hasn't moved. She's still looking out the window. And then they cut back and he's gone. Right. It's not like she looked away and then she looked back and he's gone. It's like it was one continuous thing.
Right, like, so you wonder, like, you've heard the commentaries, I don't know if they mention it, but, I wonder if they were trying to make it seem like she was imagining it, and maybe, Loomis was wrong with him saying he was coming, he's gonna be there.
Speaking about those scenes where Jamie's seeing him in the daytime, one scene I thought was absolutely brilliant, because it established her as a badass right off the start, and with such a simple way, is when she's in class, she's staring out the window, kind of daydreaming, she sees Michael, and the teacher like busts her on it and calls her and asks her this hard question, and she just like turns around and calmly like crushes the answer, and then resumes daydreaming. I'm like, yeah, you knew she was a badass. Yeah, she didn't even phase her.
I was
she's a smart girl.
Yeah, because like I was not a good student, so I could sit there and with the book, the answer right in front of me, and the teacher calls me on that, and I'd still be like, It's like, forget about having a mass murderer looking at me at the window, and it's like I wouldn't be able to get it in the best settings,
Yeah, that's another thing about this movie. I mean, it's the final girl. That's a well-worn trope in horror movies these days. But I mean, this one, she truly was really, really intelligent. I mean, you could tell just from the way they set up the movie. She's not the boy crazy one. She's not the she's responsible. She takes care of the kids. She
does smoke weed, though. That's her downfall.
That's her one little that's her one little act of rebellion. But other than that, I mean, she's like, and she doesn't come off as like this goody that you don't like.
No, that's the thing.
She's very likable.
Yeah, she is likable, and it's like, I'm obviously you know, we watch it now and she's likable because she's like this like iconic horror legend and she's Jamie Lee Curtis, and you know, we all, you know, I mean there's some people there that'll look at this movie now, you know, like we look at it, it's like, oh yeah, she was the one in this and that and Trading Places and this, and there's someone that says, oh yeah, there's the one that does the yogurt that makes you poop commercials, you know.
Yeah, right.
So it's like, but you know, so she, you know, she's known now, but like I just remember back then like always thinking how what a cool character she is, because she is that kind of goody two shoes, but not the sickening one that makes you want to vomit. She's cool. Like wouldn't you want her as your babysitter? I mean, it's like she'll make jack-o'-lanterns with you, and she'll let you watch horror movies, and like, I mean, look, she's even like well, actually, it was the other. I guess Annie does it, but still, she's helped facilitates that little kid getting his first girlfriend there. You know, it's like
yeah, exactly. Yeah, she has an intelligence you don't typically see. You know, I mean, let's be honest, in most of these movies, everybody's a moron.
Right.
You know, the kids are all goof-offs, they're all partiers, they're all dummies. And she's just very level-headed and very mature for her age. You know, you can tell it even in this film.
Yeah, and you know, she obviously, like, her priorities are, and she even says it in one line. She goes, "Oh, people think I'm too smart. You know, the boys think she's too smart." But you know, and it's like, yeah, you could, and they set that up. Like, you could say, okay, you know what? Yeah, I mean, especially when you got her two friends going around that obviously will, like, you know, just sleep with anybody. It's, you know, it's like,
yeah.
So yeah, so she's definitely the you know the one that the most people though at some level can relate to, because she's like you know, she's just the normal person, you know, but you know, she's a badass too, and you know, she can take care of herself.
Right. Speaking of other character things we noticed, I was kind of laughing when we all know Dr. Loomis is a bit of an asshole, right?
Oh yeah, he's a great asshole though.
Yeah. I was just laughing because I totally forgot, like, the very first time you meet him, of course he's driving in the car with the nurse or whatever, and they get to the mental institution, and you know, Michael steals the car or whatever, and you know, drags her out of the car. He basically like leaves this poor nurse who's just been assaulted.
Yeah,
he just leaves her in the pouring rain. He's just like, we gotta go get him, and he's like, just runs off and just leaves her like crying.
Yeah, he does after she's okay, right away. He goes, "Are you okay? We gotta get him. He's gone from here." You know?
All right, see you, bitch.
Yeah, it's like, all right, you messed this up. You know, it's like, and the funny thing, he's like sarcastic too. You know, it's like where his line is was like, well, you know, it's 100 miles from here. How does he even drive? And he goes like, well, maybe someone here gave him lessons. You know, it's like he's yeah, it's great though, and he's like, he's such a cool character, because he's like, you know, he like knows how, and think about it, he's the only one that knows, or at least claims to know, how evil Michael is, how he can't be stopped, yet he doesn't, like, he's not afraid of him. He's afraid of what he'll do, but he's not afraid of him. Like, he basically think about it, at one point he's in the movie, he's sitting there in that creepy house just waiting for him.
Yeah, and he's made it his life. That's his entire life has revolved around this one patient, right. Literally, and that is his sole obsession. I mean, that's it. There's nothing else. That is his complete devotion, is to stopping this guy, and and you see it even in like when you get into Halloween 4 and Halloween 5. I mean, he's like, what's the little girl?
Jamie, yeah.
Jamie, you know, he's just like yelling at her, you know, like snap out of it, kid. I need to know where this guy is. I mean, he's just like being a complete asshole about it. Like,
yeah, but I love it too, because he's still got like his sense about him. Like when he takes out the gun and he goes, oh, I got a permit for this. So, you know, it's like he like whips out this little crumpled piece of paper that's probably like his dry cleaning. He doesn't even look, but you know, it's kind of funny because it's like, yeah, you know, with all the things, and I gotta tell you that, speaking of that whole scene where, you know, where he leaves, that when I was a kid used to freak me out. I don't know why, when he pulls up and he sees them like the people wandering, because it's like the audience sees that before he reacts to it or anything. You know, you just see those people wandering around. I'm like, what the hell? I'm like, what is that? That's creepy.
That whole scene was creepy. I mean, the way it was lit and everything, and I don't even know if it was purposeful. It might have been just like, you know, we didn't have good lighting out there, but it really worked. Like the headlights in the rain and everything. Yeah. I mean, it was really, really spooky looking.
Yeah, and did you know, it's funny, I didn't catch it. All the times, I just assumed he just suspected, but there's that shot where he looks at the matches and it sees like whatever that club I guess, with the matches on it. And later he finds that matches in the truck that he finds. I just assumed, like, I don't know why he needed that to assure it. He sees a car pulled over and like the white gowns that he wore, but it doesn't mean it until he sees that little matches.
And then of course you find out in Rob Zombie's version that's where Michael Myers' mom strips.
Yes, which was that was a great callback for that. When we get to those movies, but that'll be fun. Because I personally like the Rob Zombies, but even though I keep them in like it's a different class as these, but I do like those versions of the movie. Even though I thought the second one was kind of weird, but and the thing about this movie is it's again going back to the simple scares like. There's not that many. I mean, there's a couple of like jump scares in it, but some of the scares are just these slow burn scares, where it's just he's like even when like he slams the window, when he climbs on top of the car, he reaches in and and I'm like, okay, what? He had the open window. Why does he now got to break this one? But it's because she backs up into it and he wants to freak her out to get her out of the car, even though I don't know why he just didn't hop down, yank her out. I mean, Loomis is 10 feet away. Point. Right. So, but obviously that's the thing. And then actually going back to the thing before I forget with the driving, how they, I don't know if there's actually a YouTube video where they make a fake skit on how he learned to drive, which we'll put the link on the Facebook page and the site and everything. But it's kind of funny to watch. But actually the funny thing is it takes all the way till Halloween 6 where they go and explain it that with that whole Mark of the Thorn storyline, how he absorbs the people's things that he kills, and it's the people that he kills, he absorbs their skills, I guess. So God no, I'm surprised he didn't get. I guess with the people he killed, if you look at that's got to make a funny skit somewhere.
He'd make a great babysitter for one.
Yeah, I mean, think about it, and he's obviously going to learn how to answer something. Without paying attention.
Speaking of that, I had a question for you. Do you think Michael Myers would have killed the kids?
That is so funny you said that, because that's one of the things to me that through this movie I was like wondering, I think what may have scared me as a kid, because if you think about it, he doesn't actually kill any of the kids in it, but they're there and you don't know. And so as a kid, you're watching this movie as a young person, you're like, wow, and as later horror movies, like think about it, Jason's at a camp and it takes till I think the 6th one before. Well, I guess in the 4th he goes after Tommy, but and that's only because Tommy's trying to kill him. But the kids are usually never around this. It's all teenagers. So like as a kid, my mindset is like, okay, until I turn 13, I'm pretty much safe. But in this in this movie, if you think about it, that one kid runs into him, and he just holds him, and he freaks out because. And at that point you're like, I wonder why he didn't kill him, and then he follows Tommy around, which until, I never understood why he does that. Why is he following Tommy as he's walking? Remember, he's walking back after the pumpkin. I don't know, like almost like does he? I was thinking maybe he bonds with him because he sees him getting bullied and he feels bad because he's like this loner kid, like he might have been. But it's like, I don't know if it was just the way they did it, and there was nothing to, there's no theory behind why they did it, and it's just that's what it was. But it's like you wonder if he would have actually killed the kids or not, and it's like I wonder, like I'm surprised the commentary didn't like go over it, because I don't know if there's ever an answer for that.
I mean, realistically you could say he's probably still childlike in his mind, so maybe he wouldn't go after the kids, but like personally I like to believe he would kill anybody that got in his way. He doesn't care. He killed a dog.
Yeah, he did, and he ate a dog. I guess at one point they imply in the house. Yeah, they find like the.
So I like to think that, and this goes back to the reason where I think he is my absolute favorite horror villain, is because there is, until you got to part 6 or whatever when they tried to explain it, but there up until that point there was no explanation for why he is this way. He just is. He's just evil. Yeah, and
he for some reason he has something against his family, and he's like wants to eradicate every piece of family. But then you think about it, why didn't he go after his parents? It's like his parents come home and they're easy targets because they're standing there with jaw open, not figuring out what's going on. And
I don't know.
And it's funny though you said that about the childlike thing, and I didn't notice this. And as many times I've seen this, and obviously because we're doing it for the podcast, and I was taking notes and I was really trying to study things. If you look, it's not the guy that was obviously under the thing, which I'll get to in my little like trivia pieces later. But if you notice when he gets unmasked at the end, his expression is identical to the young Michael's expression in the beginning of the movie. When they pick that mask and Michael's just standing there with that, when his parents show up and he's got that look, that is almost the exact look that the actor that they have when he gets unmasked looks like that. And I was like, wow. I said, all the times I've seen that movie, I don't think I ever caught that, how identical it is.
Yeah, a lot of people don't remember that he was unmasked in this movie.
Yeah, and you see his face again another time, actually, which is a total different actor, obviously. But when he steals the car, you can see his his face.
Yeah, you could see him. So it's like, you hear people all the time say, we never get to see what's under his mask. Yeah, you do. You see it in the very first movie. But people kind of forget that.
Well, because you know what I think, and we can touch on this too, is that mask is so iconic. It's and all it is a Captain Kirk mask that they rejected and tweaked.
And they never got it right after this movie.
No, you noticed that?
Mind, they never got it right.
It's
never got it
been
right
the same.
again. It's never.
Yeah. And actually, I read a piece of trivia to this before. Apparently, that this is, by the way, IMDb is great for this stuff, whether it's true or not. And apparently, they actually at one point had a clown mask he was going to be wearing, and so it was going to be kind of similar to the mask he wore as a kid when he killed. But they said it just didn't work as well, as it was too creepy. But it's the same. Like, I don't know. I guess but I can't picture him without a different mask. That's the one thing which I didn't like about Halloween 2. Remember that's, the Rob Zombie one when he's walking around with just the big beard and everything. I'm like, that's not Michael Myers to me.
Yeah.
The mask is everything. It's like, and it's funny. It's the same people that think like Jason, there's those casual Friday the 13th fans that think Jason was the killer in the first movie, and walking around, and he always had the hockey mask when he didn't get it until the third one. So
exactly. Yeah, no, one thing we didn't touch on yet was the music.
Yes.
This soundtrack was actually the first horror movie soundtrack I ever bought, and in my mind, this is the scariest music ever put down.
Yeah, and what is it, like 6 notes or something?
Yeah, to me, this is the scariest horror movie soundtrack that's ever been put out. Just for my money, my personal opinion.
Oh no, I agree, because it's just, and they use it so perfectly, throughout the movie, and it's so funny. It's so well done. You don't even realize how many times they repeat it in the movie.
Yeah, I was looking at it when I was watching last night. I was kind of paying special attention to the score, and even when Laurie's just walking down the street, it's there in the background. It permeates every single scene.
Yeah, and it's like there's like 2 like signature ones. There's that the dun 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 dun, but there's also that one that dun dun, which is just basically a couple of piano notes going back and forth, and it's like it's got to be one of the easiest scores to have ever come up with, but yet it is like incredible how perfect it is for the movie.
Yeah, it's amazing. I still have that soundtrack, and even after I bought it, I was like, I wouldn't listen to it because I was kind of scared of it. I was like, I don't want to listen to this. I just kind of want to own it.
Yeah. Oh no. Yeah. I think I bought it years later. I found it on CD. It was like in a bargain bin. I'm like, all right, I don't own this, but I gotta kind of have it. and if you think about it too, it's like the horror movie soundtracks. There's so many that are out there. That's you got the Friday the 13th with the sound, but like. I agree with you though. I don't think there's anything quite like the Halloween one. And the fact that John Carpenter did it, it's like even better. It's like
it's held up too. Like it's not dated at all. Like to this day, it's not dated.
No, it's not. And the funny thing is, people that even probably didn't see the movie or have seen like one of the movies years ago will know that theme instantly.
Yeah. It's fantastic, and it's part of what makes this movie so special. Even take away all the other things, that score is so iconic. It just all the pieces came together.
Yeah, no, and it's and the thing is, it's like I love how you get it right in the beginning, and it's like you're not quite sure, like if you for the first I know your brother he's on the podcast with the where he does the Star Wars Virgins. I would love to have someone who's never seen Halloween just watch it now and see how. How they would react to it, like if they could still connect to it in a way, Yeah,
well, I've got a good friend who has offered to come on the podcast at some point down the road. That he does not like horror movies at all.
Oh,
he's scared, and because he's scared to death of them. He is such a chicken. And so he has volunteered to, at some point, we're going to have like a horror movie virgin interview, and we're going to make him watch something really screwed up.
That'll be cool. Yeah, we got to think of a good one for that
get his thoughts on it. So
yeah, as you say that, I'm like scanning because I'm recording in my Blu-ray DVD room here, and I'm like scanning to see what a good one could be. You know, there's got to be some good ones.
So we're about over an hour, so I guess it's time to wrap this up. But
yes.
Like we said, we're gonna do some old films. We're gonna do some new films. We may do some really obscure stuff. We may do some really mainstream stuff. It's just gonna be whatever we feel like that week. And if you guys have suggestions for movies that you want us to cover, by all means, you can get up with us on our Facebook page. Look up Civil Gore on Facebook. We're on Twitter at Civil Gore Pod. And you can contact us via email at civilgorepodcast@gmail.com.
Yeah, and you can check out our really cool logo that was designed for us.
Yeah. We may it may be updated in the future, but for now that's what we're going with.
It's pretty good. And just for the record, Tim and I don't look like that in the image.
No.
We're actually normal looking people. We're not skulls, but you know, you can take a thing. Oh, and then just for a fun thing we thought we'd do. There's no prize or anything like that, but we thought it'd be fun to kind of throw out like a little trivia based on the movie that we reviewed, and then the next week's show we'll give the answer to. And you know, we thought it'd be fun because that way we'll guarantee at least to listen to the next episode, even if you didn't like this one, just to get the answer. You know, so and you know, try not to cheat either, because you know, like, you're not getting it. It's more for fun anyway, so you're not getting a prize. So just try and answer it on your own. But so this one I kind of scoured and tried to find what the best kind of trivia would be for it. So the trivia question for this week, I figured it would be. It's kind of a good one. It's obviously, like I said, if you go on IMDb, you'll probably be able to get the answer, but try and do it without doing that. But so the question is, who is the only actor or actress to appear in Halloween 1, 2, and 3? So, and if you think about it, you know, as we mentioned before, Halloween 3 really has nothing to do with the other two, other than in the name. So, you know, it because, you know, it's a little tricky. And actually, I'll give you a hint. It's actually someone that appeared visually in the film, because there are two people that actually appeared by voice only, which I found out today. Actually, I never caught that Jamie Lee Curtis actually does voice in Halloween 3. She plays
wow.
She plays like the operator of something, and then she makes an announcement, I guess, about the curfew is her voice. So.
Oh, that's cool. Okay.
Yeah, so that's pretty interesting. So.
All right, so we're going to sign off, and we'll see you guys back here next week.
Thank you for listening, and hope you enjoy the show. Take it easy, guys.
Are you all right? You're all right?
Yes, I'm okay.
He's gone. He's gone from here. The evil is gone.